Hello and welcome to r/CreepyEncounters, where unsuspecting people barely escape truly horrifying situations. Now, to my knowledge, these stories are in fact true and do contain situations some may find uncomfortable and disturbing. If you cannot handle the thought of human trafficking, sexual predators, and stalkers, I would advise that you cease listening to this reading immediately. Now, for those of you still listening, let's get into today's narration. This first post is by user BillyGoat25. I'll start off by mentioning my little sister is special needs. About an 8-year-old mentality, but she's 30. We went into Walmart to grab a few things, and then we're standing in line to check out. My little sister wants to look at the books they have up front a couple aisles over. When she comes back, she has a note that says, "Hey, Carrie Underwood, if you want to see me, send your sister away again, and she will find me and I will tell her what to say." What? First of all, don't talk to my sister and then say creepy things while you hide behind displays. Second note was left on my car, so unless my sister told them about my car, she wouldn't have known the make or model. They knew it and left this number. It creeped me out that he was watching me and using my baby sister to communicate. Never again is she allowed away from me at the store. Always be looking around, girls. Yeah, it's just your normal average day stalker in between the aisles. This next post is by user CD Pete. First time poster, long time lurker. I have a couple creepy encounters that I can think of, but this one will always stick to me due to the pure fear that ran through my veins. I was 10 years old at the time, and a friend and I were outside in my driveway riding around on our Razor scooters. It was after dark. I remember the streetlights being on. My dad was hanging out with some neighbors a few houses down, so it was just us kids hanging around in my driveway. I remember hearing a very loud car coming down the road, and we couldn't make out what it was at first. After doing some recent research, and if my memory serves me correctly, the car was similar to a red 1977 Thunderbird with dark tinted windows. This car was going by slowly. Too slowly. My friend and I both got an eerie feeling, so we ran and hid behind my trash cans. I know this is dumb. We should have gone inside, but we were 10, and the cans seemed safe since they were the closest shield out of view. The Thunderbird crept on by my house and eventually disappeared from sight and earshot, so we went back to our playtime. Then, all of a sudden, we hear the car again, but this time it's behind us, on the next street over, and stops as if whoever's inside sees us and starts speeding up out of sight again, heading our way. So we hide behind the trash cans again, but this time the Thunderbird comes and parks directly in front of my driveway and just idles there for what feels like an eternity. My entire nervous system was on red alert and I could barely breathe. I knew that whoever was in that car wanted to hurt my friend and I. At that moment, we could hear the door of the car opening, and with pure luck, our fate, my dad starts walking home and yells out, "Hey man, can I help you with something?" making the driver take off in a hurry. This next post is by Intellectual Thought. I can't stop laughing at that name. This is a serious situation. I'll post my original reaction after the video's over. After the narration's over. Fall 2017. I was 18 and starting my freshman year at a huge university 8 hours away from my home. Quite a lot was going on in my life, as this was the first time ever moving cities and my first time living parent-free after 18 years with limited independence and a strict household. I was going through all that wacky culture shock and mental/emotional changes most college freshmen go through within the first few days of moving onto campus. This was the very first day of classes. After my last class, which was pretty late and ended around 5:30 p.m., I stopped by the food court to pick up something to eat. I was too hungry to wait to get back to my dorm, so I sat alone on a bench in a courtyard between two buildings and started to eat. Yes, I know walking and eating alone was probably a really stupid idea, But I was naive as hell and figured that at a huge college campus, I would only be surrounded by other lost, confused students like me. I also had no friends since I moved to this city in school, not knowing a single person and my raging social anxiety making me hesitant to try to meet new people. Anyways, I was alone on a bench eating my food when an odd-looking couple approached me. A tall, muscular, bald man and a petite Latina Asian-looking woman with glasses and a bob-style haircut who was holding a few books. The man was completely silent, but the woman enthusiastically approached me, introducing herself as Carmen in an ambiguous accent. She didn't even introduce the man, and he just stood there silently. She started asking me stuff. My name, year, where I was born, what I was majoring in, before telling me she was from a Bible study group here in the city that a lot of college students find interest in. She opened a Bible and started reading me some random passage before explaining it, and continuing to talk more and more about this group. She asked if I'd be interested, and I quickly shot her down by explaining that I had no time in my schedule with my classes. I took my phone out of my pocket to check the time. She had been lecturing me for about 20 minutes at this point, and I made up some weird, ridiculous lie that I can't remember about how I had to leave immediately. She snatched my phone from me and was like, "Wait, before you leave, I'm going to give you my contact information so you can let me know later if you're still interested," and proceeded to put her number in my contacts. As I said, I was deep in culture shock of this whole brand new college freshman experience. I was terribly shy, and I didn't have the confidence to be assertive in this kind of situation. I just let her do her thing. She gave me my phone back, and I headed back to my dorm. I approached my dorm and realized I didn't have my keys or wallet, even though I swore I was holding them at the time the couple had approached me. I frantically ran back to the bench area and searched for it thoroughly, went through my backpack, went through the nearby trash can, nothing. I couldn't get into my dorm without my keys or ID, so I crumpled to the ground crying and calling my dad in a panic. This was my first time ever losing my keys/wallet in public, days after moving to a new city, and for an insecure 18-year-old, it felt like my life was over. My dad could only do so much from 8 hours away, so he instructed me to call the campus police. I did, and an officer arrived and asked me for details of where I was, what my belongings looked like, etc. I didn't even mention the odd Bible study couple to him at all because in such a panic, I didn't think to consider they might have had any involvement or any way of reaching my things out of my backpack. I still feel very incredibly stupid for not providing this detail. The officer gave me temporary dorm access and instructed me to contact the police department daily to check if any missing items were turned up. I was overcome with relief when I received an email 2 to 3 days later from the RA in the dorm halfway across campus saying that my keys and wallet were turned in to their lost and found. I never saw that couple around campus again. I avoided going to places alone rather than class. A few months later, I was scrolling through social media to see a few multiple posts about an ongoing sex trafficking ring in the area that would target college students by introducing themselves as Bible study groups. My stomach dropped. It sounded way too similar to the couple that approached me before my belongings mysteriously disappeared. 3 years later, I still feel like an utter and complete idiot for being more freaked out over my missing things than the encounter of these two strangers. Seriously though, that's crazy. That's like the perfect thing to disguise yourself as, a Bible study group. Be the last person anyone would suspect. Well, some people might suspect Bible study groups more, but that's probably due to cults, but because, there's a lot of cults out there. But still, that's insane. The user's lucky they didn't have her room number. Otherwise, she probably would have been spirited away in the night. Damn. This last post is by user Somnialis. Flashback to a humid August night in 2016. My brother Tim, friend Anthony, and I decided to go for an evening drive like we did every so often on low-key Friday nights. Anthony's fiancée, Jess, made it known before we left that she had plans to meet up with some friends, so we figured we'd do one of our usual roll sessions. Drive around a few neighboring towns, shoot the shit, grab some food, head back to Anthony's business to watch some TV before Jess got back. It is important to note that Anthony and Jess own a facility that operates 24/7. The building is set back from a main road down a long driveway. They would both spend the majority of their time there, and have staff stay late to cover evening shifts. However, on this particular night, the worker who was scheduled to cover the late shift had called out. With this in mind, we knew that we would have to stop by the business around 11 p.m. so Anthony could cover. The roll session went as planned. We left Anthony's at around 8:30 p.m., grabbed something to eat, and drove around aimlessly for the next 2 hours, offloading our problems onto each other and enjoying the muggy night air. Anthony received a couple Snapchat messages from Jess, one of which was a picture of the floor at the business with a caption stating, "My new view," and then a puking emoji. Clearly she was a bit intoxicated, and Anthony was, understandably, a bit annoyed. At approximately 11 o'clock, we arrived at the parking lot. Anthony pulled the car into a space on the right of the building, and we sat in the car with the windows down. The air was thick that night, causing some windows to cloud over in the car. We were alone in the parking lot, and the only light came from a small lamp fixed to the front of the building. We, however, were totally in darkness, finishing up our conversation before Anthony had to go in and deal with his likely tipsy fiancée. As we were sitting in the lot, we noticed headlights cutting through the darkness of the long driveway behind us. This instantly caught our attention, as no public is allowed at the facility past 8 p.m. We kill the engine and sit still to observe the approaching vehicle. A Ford Explorer pulls up slowly, creeps past the front of the building, and pulls into a spot directly to our right. At this point, our passenger side door was lined up with the Explorer's driver's side door. It was an eerie feeling. The kind of sinking feeling when you know something just isn't right. I was in the back seat and could not see the driver. Suddenly, I hear Anthony say, "Hey, what are you doing here?" The driver responds in a nervous tone. "Hey, what up, man?" "Yeah, I was, taking a drive through the area. Figured I'd stop by and check in." Deafening silence. It was around 11 at night. By Anthony's short tone and motionlessness, I could tell he was uncomfortable. The driver hesitates for a moment and nervously says, "Yeah, I was just doing some driving. Your fiance's pretty drunk, huh? I saw it on Snap." The statement is completely out of context, and red flags are going off in my head. I look at my brother, who gives me a dead stare. Anthony keeps cool and responds that Jess was out with friends, and that he had to just come back to check on her. The driver lets out a forced laugh. "Yeah, well, I was just swinging through the area. I gotta get back or else my girl will kill me." He then puts the car in reverse and takes off. He left no time for Anthony to respond. Tim and I instantly asked Anthony who the hell this guy was and how he knew about Jess's location. Anthony explains that the man's name is Brendan, and that he was hired to cut the property's lawn on occasion. Anthony heard that Brendan supposedly had a criminal history, but never fully investigated the matter. Thinking of the situation, I asked Anthony if Jess had Brendan as a Snapchat friend, while also pointing out that this would be an extremely foolish idea. Anthony wasn't sure, but we assumed that this had to be the case. We immediately typed his name into Google along with our city, and sure enough, an article appeared which detailed his arrest 3 years prior for impersonating a police officer and raping a prostitute in his vehicle. Everything suddenly became clear. This nutcase saw Jess's Snap story, realized she was drunk, and recognizing the floor of the building, made his way to the facility and tried to make contact. We flew out of the car and ran into the building looking for Jess. We found her sleeping on the staff room couch. We asked her if she had spoken to the landscaper guy, Brendan, that day. She shows us her phone, and he had messaged her hours earlier, commenting on one of her snaps. We told her we caught Brendan in the parking lot minutes ago without any explanation, and that he knew she had been drinking. We also showed her the news article describing Brendan's arrest. Jess instantly fell sick to her stomach. What if she had let him inside? He was a familiar face after all. It was all very chilling. This man, a convicted violent sex offender, was literally on her property at 11 p.m. in almost total darkness, away from the main road. If we hadn't been there and she had answered the door, honestly, who knows what would have happened? That night, Jess deleted him on all social media. They haven't seen him since and don't intend on ever hiring him to do any yard work again. What an absolute creep. Seriously, be careful who you add on social media. Some people are totally whacked and they're closer to you than you think. Yeah, seriously, that could have ended a lot of bad ways. Man, it's a good thing OP was there. Well, that's it for tonight's stories. I hope you enjoyed them all. Remember to like my narrations, as it will help me show up on other people's related videos. I've recently posted new changes on Twitter. If you haven't seen it on Twitter yet, basically I'm going to be uploading 3 times a week and then do a live narration every Saturday. So I'm going to be uploading on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, with the live narration on Saturday. The main difference is that on Wednesday, my wife will be reading the narration instead of me. Well, that's all for now. I'll catch you later. This next post is by intellectual... Oh my God. No. All right. I can't fucking say it. No.